How did the separation ultimately happen? How long did you stay down there and try to keep doing your thing?
Well, at first, it was all good because in my mind, this record label belongs to Dre and me. The early paperwork said that Dre and I owned the label 35% each, and Suge and another guy named Griffey owned that other 30% respectively.
Okay.
And, we went to making the records and after a while, things started to change and the atmosphere starts to get dark and more of that street element, that prison element started coming around and it just got uncomfortable. And the next thing I know, Dre and Suge are at Interscope and they're doing this deal and I'm not a part of the business anymore. Dre's advice was go get a lawyer, and it's great advice. Or it could have been deadly advice, and so I weighed those options and thought it's probably best for me to figure out another way to make this thing work. I want to ride it out for a while. I know that this is going to be successful. Maybe there'll come a time when they've got enough and we can start,
And that's been the pattern your whole life to that point too. You almost don't know any different. You're constantly getting pushed over. Was it Suge, I guess, that initiated that whole thing? Because it seems like you and Dre didn't have the type of personality, doesn't seem like, versus a Suge.
Yeah.
To
Dre's
kind of
not the
initiate.
type to knowingly just screw you over.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to stand in the way of somebody else screwing you over.
Obviously, yeah.
And so I'm sure Suge and, went and did all the business that he had to do. And he had made that situation really uncomfortable to think about trying to fight somebody, because from my perspective, I was out there by myself.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to get back to back with me, then I can't.
You feel alone.
Beat the whole blood gang up by myself,
Right.
And so I let it ride until it got to the point where I saw it's never going to stop. They're never going to have enough to let me get my little piece.
Yeah.
And so it's probably best for me to move on.
So how much of the Suge craziness was true? Was he, obviously he's
probably all of it.
Probably all of it.
I wouldn't doubt if every single bit of it was the truth.
Yeah.
Suge was a bit of a bully, but just a big kid, man.
Yeah.
Like what happens when you give a kid that wants all this power when you just give it to him. And he fought show business will screw anybody over. It will. When you start living through that character that you create, when you start really being that person.
And everybody buys in because of the character.
And you do.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of these young rappers today, they bought into the character that they created, whether it's in the streets or on those records. When you get away from the fact that you're just a man, no matter who you are, you bleed the same.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to walk through bullets. You don't get to walk through this world without any pain. And when you cause pain, you're going to find it's karma's a bitch. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
And she is served cold. And, I've always been a good guy. And I'm not going to change that aspect about myself and nobody.
Yeah. Well, you being here says a lot. Like I said, you would earn the badge of being somebody that could be an untouchable type of a superstar kind of a guy, but you're very personable and honorable willing to talk to people and, make it a human experience. I really appreciate that about
Thank you, brother.
How long did it take once you split to start doing your own music again?
Oh, when I left, I took beats with me. I was a beat thief. Because I'd made a song that everybody thought was really good. That song ended up on my Helter Skelter album. And I took that name too,
Yeah.
I was mad.
Yeah.
Dre and Ice Cube were going to do a record called Helter Skelter. And they were trying to get me to write all of these songs about anarchy, and really about where we are now in this day and age. And I started writing those songs 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And people were flipping out, man, this stuff is crazy, blah, blah. And I thought that they'd let me get on one. I don't like your voice. I don't want you on anything. So I took my songs and left, And there was a company, forget the name of that company. They gave me $500,000 to make that album, Helter Skelter. Mm. So when I left that situation, I left with songs and an opportunity to go, make it myself.
Finally getting a little nut out of something.
Unfortunately, the alcoholism and subsequent drug abuse followed me where I went. And I was just not in shape to, the music may have been cool, but I, as a human being, wasn't in a place where I could do myself any good.
Is part of that, obviously it was born of your circumstance, but was part of that also just the grudges that you had? I know you claim to not hold grudges, but there was kind of an epiphany that happened to you. So there was righteously several years that you carried those grudges with you.
I think the only person that I was really ever... No, man, you're probably right. I was probably mad at a lot of people, myself mostly. But I probably held some tucked away.
Yeah, I mean, that's human too. I mean,
sure.
You get older and you start figuring out what it means in the grand scheme, and then.
But by the time I started figuring that stuff out, Easy was gone.
Right.
So it's hard to hold that grudge, but I was upset with him.
Yeah.
For a while, and I was upset with Dre for a while, and but it never stopped for me. Like I've never not had money. It wasn't mine, but I always had a pocket full of it. And what I didn't have was the heart of that kid that went to California. That young kid who knew who he was and knew his worth and knew he was this. That part had left when that accident came.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for it to come back.